We'll reconvene the public safety hearing for Terry Mitchum. So the board heard testimony from both sides. I emailed last night a draft findings report to all the board members, except for Shirley. They don't have an email address for you. You have it now in front of you. This time I will read this draft finding. At the conclusion of each charge, I'll ask for a vote to affirm the charges as they're written and proposed. And then I'll read a finding, and I'll ask for a motion to affirm or deny the finding. If the finding is denied, then, or if there's no motion, then I'll ask for a finding from the board on how they want to handle the charge. All right, so the findings of this Town Safety Board. The Brookville Town Safety Board met on the 29th day of December 2022 for the purpose. That's loud.
What number are you?
It's not loud.
One.
One.
It's not loud out there?
It's loud everywhere else.
Try that, see.
2022 for the purpose of determining whether the 5 remaining disciplinary charges that were preferred against Town Marshal Terry Mitchum on November 29th, 2022 were supported by substantial evidence, and if those charges were so supported, what, if any, disciplinary action would be appropriate? Appearing before the board on this 29th day, December 2022, were the presenting attorney Anthony J. Saunders and the respondent Town Marshal Terry Mitchum, both in person and by counsel Charles N. Brown II. Witnesses were sworn, documents were admitted, and evidence was heard. The respondent, through counsel, did file a written motion to dismiss on December 28, 2022. The following review of that motion, along with the response of the presenting attorney, that motion will be denied. The board denied this motion with voting in favor of this denial and 1 voting against. The respondent, through counsel, did make an oral motion to dismiss. Following review of that motion, along with the response of the presenting attorney, that motion will be denied. The board denied this motion with 3 voting in favor of the denial and 2 voting against. Prior to hearing, the presenting attorney filed a motion to dismiss count 6 of the disciplinary charging information. Following conclusion of the presentation of the party's evidence, the board voted regarding whether the presenting attorney had submitted substantial evidence of conduct that violated Indiana Code 36834 as set forth in the disciplinary charge referral. Count 1 of the disciplinary charging information reads as follows. Pursuant to Indiana Code 36834, B, 2, F through H, the investigation into Terry Mitchum's conduct as the Town Marshal / Chief of the Brookville Police Department has uncovered evidence that Terry Mitchum, while acting in an official capacity, is engaged in conduct unbecoming an officer, immoral conduct, and/or conduct injurious to the public peace or welfare in that on or about July 20th, 2022, following testimony by Ryan Geiser, Terry Mitchum did state to the Brookville Town Board President Curtis Ward that if the Town Board did not back him, he would make the Town Board's members' lives a living hell. Due to these actions, Terry Mitchum's continued employment as the Town Marshal Chief in the Brookville Police Department is detrimental to the discipline and/or efficiency of the Brookville Police Department. With regard to count 1, so I ask for a motion to affirm that charge.
What are we voting on?
That charge is the charge we're going to
Count 1.
charge.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to affirm the charge.
Brooke has motion to affirm that charge.
I'll second.
Kathy, second, all in favor? Opposed? The findings of the board are now to be read. With regard to count one of disciplinary charging information, the presented, this is the findings of With regard to count one of disciplinary charging information, the presenting attorney submitted testimonial evidence of a conversation between Curtis Ward and Terry Mitchum that occurred on July 20th, 2022. Curtis Ward is and was at all times relevant here, and Brookville Town Board President. In their testimony, both persons agreed that the conversation took place.
I'm sorry.
Curtis Ward states that Terry Mitchum stated if the Brookville Town Board does not back him in an upcoming conflict and investigation arising from misconduct that was alleged against him, then he would make the town board's lives live in hell. Curtis Ward took this statement as a threat. Terry Mitchum recounted that conversation as being, he informed Curtis Ward that if he came after him for allegations of misconduct, that he, Mitchum, would open Pandora's box. It is common knowledge that the phrase to open Pandora's box means to release chaos. No matter how one views the conversation, both parties indicated that Terry Mitchum stated words to Curtis, and the board finds that it is reasonable to view the words used under either scenario as threatening words directed at Curtis Ward. The board does not find it credible that Terry Mitchum was referring to opening Pandora's box on himself. Even assuming that Terry Mitchum's emotions were high at the time, it is when emotions are high that one must control himself or herself, especially when one is a police officer. The board finds that the statement made by Terry Mitchum to Curtis Ward on July 20th, 2022 constitutes a threat against a Brookville Town Board member. The board finds that having a police officer on the Brookville Police Department who threatens a town board member is detrimental to the discipline and or efficiency of the Brookville Police Department, and his constituent immoral conduct against the public peace and welfare, and conduct unbecoming an officer, as those terms are set in Indiana Code 36834B2F through H. The board finds that the testimony of Curtis Ward constitutes substantial evidence that Terry Mitchum has engaged in immoral conduct against the public peace and welfare, and conduct unbecoming an officer, as those terms are set forth in Indiana Code 36834B2F through H, and that Terry Mitchum's continued employment with the Brookville Police Department would detrimentally impact the discipline and or efficiency of that department. The board approved these findings in conclusion with a vote. If I have a motion to approve those findings.
I'll make a motion to approve the findings.
I'll make a second.
Burke has motion to approve those findings as read. Kathy has second. All in favor? Opposed? I'll now read the suggested discipline from the board. With regard to the count one of disciplinary charging information, the board recommends to Brookville Town Board that Terry Mitchum be terminated from his employment with the Brookville Police Department. I'll ask for a motion as to that effect.
I'll make that motion.
Kathy has made the motion.
I'll second.
Second by Brooke. All in favor? Opposed? The board also makes the following finding and conclusion of law with regard to the matters set forth in counts 2 through 5 of the disciplinary complaint against Terry Mitchum. Terry Mitchum is a town marshal under Indiana Code 36571. How do you say that? E-T-S-E-Q.
Oh, Ed Seek, that's just
Ed
his,
Seek.
yeah.
His title as chief is reflective of the title bestowed in Indiana Code 36574, and the term police chief and town marshal are used interchangeably without any change to function. The board will proceed under the presumption that there is no manner in which to demote a town marshal to deputy town marshal under the Indiana Code, and announcing its sanctions going forward. Any motion in that effect?
I'll make a motion.
Brooke has made a motion. Do I have a
A
second?
second.
Kathy, second. All in favor? Opposed? That's it. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I guess I would ask, Earl, if he's not a town marshal, what is he?
He's the chief of police until he changes title.
Okay, but is there another statute that we would use?
He's the chief of police until he changes title.
What is he under the statute, Earl?
Under his title, he's in Brookville chief of police.
Then what is the statutory authority for his employment? Or are you just voting to be concerned?
Hold on here. What do you do, Tony? You cannot be questioning the people that are paying you. You cannot be cross-examining them.
I'm thinking that maybe people should know what they're voting about before they vote on it.
Well, I know I'm voting that when it's wrong for being terminated.
I agree, yeah. People should know what they're.
If he would have never been flagged down by Curtis Ward, this whole conflict would have never happened.
Exactly. One of the board members slept in that of it.
Talk about.
But looking at the fact, it's the whole entire story, not one side.
I'll call this meeting back to order.
Thank you.
We'll proceed to count two.
Circus.
Quiet. Count two, the disciplinary charge and information reads as follows. Pursuant to Indiana Code 36834B2A, the investigation into Terry Mitchum's conduct as the town marshal, chief of the Brookville Police Department, has uncovered evidence that Terry Mitchum, while acting in an official capacity, is engaged in neglect of duty regarding the processing and handling of evidence. Terry Mitchum had not sent any evidence to the Indiana State Police Lab since at least December 1, 2021, and there is a backlog of evidence. Terry Mitchum allowed an environment in the Brookville Police Department to exist wherein the Brookville Police Department had no access to the Indiana State Police Lab reports for more than 1 month, and a DNA report was not retrieved for many weeks due to this neglect. Such neglect renders Terry Mitchum unfit and unable to discharge the duties of the town marshal / chief of the Brookville Town Police Department. Motion to affirm that is the charge.
I'll make a motion to affirm that's the charge.
Brooks made a motion.
A second.
Kathy second. All in favor? Earl, I don't want to take this, I don't want you to perceive this as an attack, but that motion is that what the charge is for?
I
You're
understand.
voting against.
Do I think I agree with it? No.
The part that you would vote to where you agree with it or not is in the second statement. All you're voting for there is the affirmative charge.
All right.
With regard to count two of the disciplinary charging information, the presenting attorney submitted an email from the Indiana State Police Lab regarding an evidence backlog. The testimony of Officer Donna Forsey, the testimony of Terry Mitchum, and Michael Strait testified for the respondent. All evidence indicates that there was a lack of proper handling of the evidence, and that evidence was not sent and it was not retrieved from the Indiana State Police Lab in a timely fashion. However, there was testimony that these were more the fault of circumstances beyond the control of the town marshal, namely staff turnover and the role of evidence clerk. The evidence presented regarding the handling of evidence is not substantial evidence that Terry Mitchum was engaged in neglect of his duties as town marshal with respect to the manner in which evidence was processed in the Brookville Police Department as alleged in count two of disciplinary charging information. I'll ask for a motion that the board approves those findings.
I make that motion.
Kathy approves her motions to approve the findings. Shirley, second that motion. All in favor? Any opposed? You need me to read how that goes. You go. Okay. So count two has been dismissed. Count three, the disciplinary charging information reads as follows. Pursuant to Indiana Code 36834B2A, the investigation into Terry Mitchum's conduct as the town marshal / chief of the Brookville Police Department has uncovered evidence that Terry Mitchum, while acting in an official capacity, has engaged in neglect of duty regarding his duty to report all written discipline against officers under his command to the town board in writing within 48 hours as required by Article 12, Ordinance number 1-2009, which is the standard operating procedures and rules and regulations of the Brookville Police Department, Brookville, Indiana Police Department. Such neglect renders Terry Mitchum unfit and unable to discharge the duties of the town marshal, chief of the Brookville Town Police Department. I will ask for a motion to affirm that charge.
I'll make a motion to affirm the charge.
Kathy's made a motion.
I'll second.
Seconded by Brooke. All in favor? Any opposed? With regard to count 3 of the disciplinary charging information, the presenting attorney submitted a disciplinary notice regarding Patrolman Donald Forsey dated December 27, 2021. The testimony of Brookville Clerk Treasurer Gina Gilman, an email to the presenting attorney from Gina Gilman, and the testimony of Tim Ripberger. The testimony of Terry Mitchum was also taken on this issue. All evidence except the testimony of Terry Mitchum indicates that there was a lack of proper reporting to the town board of disciplinary action taken against a Brookville police officer within 48 hours as required by Article 12 of Brookville Ordinance number 1-2009. The board believes that this was not reported because Terry Mitchum was engaged in a manner of discipline that was not sanctioned by Section 12 of Brookville Ordinance number 1-2009. The board further finds that it is more likely that Terry Mitchum did not send the notice than it is that the notice was lost in the office of Gina Gilman. It is a further offense that Terry Mitchum extended a probationary period for an officer that neither Ordinance number 1-2009 nor state statute permitted. These actions are an abuse of his power and cannot be tolerated. The evidence presented regarding the failure to execute his duty to report discipline of a patrolman to the town board within 48 hours is substantial evidence that Terry Mitchum was engaged in neglect of his duties as town marshal, as alleged in count 3 of the disciplinary charging information. Consequently, the board finds pursuant to Indiana Code 36834B2A that Terry Mitchum's continued employment with the Brookville Police Department as town marshal would not be appropriate due to his neglect of duty. I will ask for a motion to affirm those findings.
I'll make a motion to affirm the findings.
Brooke has made a motion.
A second.
Kathy, second. All in favor? Opposed? With regard to count 3, disciplinary charging information, the board finds that if there was an option to do so, Terry Mitchum's conduct warrants demotion from the position of town marshal as an appropriate sanction for this misconduct. The reason for the preference for demotion is that the board believes that this misconduct was a result of his rank and that removing the rank will ensure that this conduct does not repeat itself. However, because Indiana Code does not provide for the demotion of a town marshal, the board must vote to terminate Terry Mitchum's employment as town marshal. Ask for a motion to that statement.
I'll make the motion.
Kathy has made a motion. Shirley has second. All in favor? Opposed? Count 4 of the disciplinary charging information reads as follows. Pursuant to Indiana Code 368.3-4B2A, the investigation into Terry Mitchum's conduct as the town marshal chief of the Brookville Police Department has uncovered evidence that Terry Mitchum, while acting in an official capacity, has engaged in neglect of duty regarding his management of personnel, namely Ryan Geiser. Under Terry Mitchum's command, Ryan Geiser engaged in a pattern of conduct that included lying under oath, making a warrantless felony arrest that has resulted in a tort claim against the town, allowed Ryan Geiser to engage in conduct that has rendered Ryan Geiser unable to serve as a law enforcement officer in Franklin County, and has placed the Brookville Town Police and has placed the Brookville Town Police. Sorry, that's a typo. So it's a law enforcement officer in Franklin County and the Brookville Town Police. I'll ask for a motion to affirm that charge. if that's the charge.
I'll make a motion to affirm the charge.
Kathy's made a motion to affirm the charge.
I'll second.
Brooke is second, all in favor. With regard to count 4 of the disciplinary charging information, the presenting attorney submitted a letter from Franklin County Prosecuting Attorney Christopher Herkamp that indicated that he would no longer rely on any affirmations or reports that a police officer under the command of Terry Mitchum, namely Lieutenant Ryan Geiser, would submit to his office. The actions that led to Lieutenant Geiser no longer being able to enforce the law shows a lack of oversight and management by Terry Mitchum over the officers under his command and have put the Brookville Police Department in disrepute among the community. The board finds that because of his position as town marshal, Terry Mitchum is responsible for those persons under his command and for their actions. The board finds that Terry Mitchum's command responsibility in this matter means that he should bear some responsibility for such an extreme sanction from the chief law enforcement officer of Franklin County. The evidence presented regarding the failure to properly supervise Ryan Geiser, an officer under his command, is substantial evidence that Terry Mitchum was engaged in neglect of his duties as town marshal, as alleged in count 4 of the disciplinary charging information. Consequently, the board finds pursuant to Indiana Code 36834 B2A that Terry Mitchum's continued employment with the Brookville Police Department as town marshal would not be appropriate due to his neglect of duty. I'll ask for a motion to affirm those findings.
I'll make a motion to affirm the findings.
Brooke has made a motion.
A second.
Kathy is second. All in favor? Any opposed? With regard to count 4 of the disciplinary charging information, the board finds that if there was an option to do so, Terry Mitchum's conduct warrants demotion from the position of town marshal as appropriate sanction for his misconduct. The reason for preference for demotion is that the board believes this misconduct was a result of his rank and that removing the rank will ensure that the conduct does not repeat itself. However, because the Indiana Code does not provide for demotion of a town marshal, the board must vote to terminate Terry Mitchum's employment as town marshal. I'll ask for a motion in that effect.
I'll make a motion to that effect.
A second.
Brooke has made a motion, Kathy is second. All in favor? Opposed? Count 5 of the disciplinary charging information reads as follows. Pursuant to Indiana Code 36834B2A, the investigation into Terry Mitchum's conduct as the town marshal, chief of police department has uncovered evidence that Terry Mitchum, while acting in an official capacity, is engaged in neglect of duty regarding his management of personnel, namely Ryan Geiser. Under Terry Mitchum's command, Ryan Geiser engaged in a pattern of conduct that included lying under oath, which Terry Mitchum did not report to the appropriate authorities as required in Section 7.02A of Ordinance Number 1-2009. Such neglect renders Terry Mitchum unfit and unable to discharge the duties of town marshal / chief of Brookville Town Police Department. I'll ask for a motion to affirm that charge.
I'll make that motion.
Kathy's motion.
I'll second.
Brooke is second. All in favor? Opposed? With regard to the count 5 of the disciplinary charging information, the presenting attorney submitted a letter from Franklin County Prosecuting Attorney Christopher Herkamp that indicated that Officer Geiser lied under oath in a July 19, 2002 suppression hearing, and that Terry Mitchum stated he did not order Geiser to arrest Trevin Tallheimer on a rape charge in January 2022. Despite the fact that Geiser testified that Terry Mitchum did so order him, there is enough dispute as to when Terry Mitchum became aware that Geiser lied in his testimony that it is unclear whether he was required to report this or not. The evidence presented regarding the failure to properly report the perjury of Ryan Geiser, an officer under his command, is not substantial evidence that Terry Mitchum was engaged in neglect of his duties as town marshal as alleged in count 5 of the disciplinary charging information. I will ask for a motion to that effect.
I'll make that motion.
Kathy has made a motion.
I'll second.
Brooke is second. All in favor? Opposed? All of these findings, which were approved on this 31st day of December 2002, will be signed off on by this board with the vote. And that concludes the disciplinary